Hello gamers, this is Tom Sidener, the Lonely Gamer, and today we're going to look at a game that I received as a Christmas present from my game group, and it is called Fool's Gold. It is a game by Joshua Balvin. The artwork was done by Ian O'Toole. It's put out by Rock Paper Scissors Games and Passport Games Studios, and it is a game for 3 to 5 players where you play a prospector trying to get gold. Let's open it up and see what's inside. So inside the game you get a rule book. It's a pretty good rule book. It does a really good job of explaining how to play the game. The game's pretty simple, so there's not a lot of explanation needed, but it does cover most of the situations that you would run into in the game, and it has really nice pictures. It also has a sideboard which actually kind of dives deeper into the concepts on the sideboard and kind of gives you some examples, which is kind of nice. So that is the rule book. It comes with 5 shields for each player in the 5 different colors. So we have 5 shields. On the back of the shields it has some information. On one side it has the prospect phase actions that you can do. On this side it has the mining phase actions that you can do. And then it also gives you some breakdown of the different cards that are in the different deck, which is nice. So you can look at here and see how many of each card is in each deck when you're trying to mine for gold in those locations. The next thing you get is a very nice board, which we will look at here in a minute. And then you get a deck of cards for each location. There's 5 different locations. There's the forest, the river, the hills, the mountains, and the lake. And each one of these decks consists of different cards. Like let's say the if you look here on your chart, the lake has 3 5 nugget cards, where the hills has no 5 nugget cards, and you can tell that from your chart inside your thing. You've got some miners in all of the 5 colors for the different players. So you have wooden miners in yellow, red, blue, purple, and green. You have a first player token that looks like a little pickaxe. You have some dice. You have 10 blue dice for the normal mining season, and then you have a white dice for the winter mining season. And then you have a bunch of gold in 1 gold chips. So there's no 5s, 10s, just the 1s, and really 1s are all you need, so that's kind of nice. So let's put out the board and get it to the table, and we'll take a look at the board, and we'll also see how you play Fool's Gold. Okay, so here we have the board for Fool's Gold. The setup is very simple. First of all, we just take each deck and we put it in the represented location. So here's the mountains deck. I'm going to put it here. The lake deck goes here. The hills deck goes here. The river deck goes here. And the forest deck goes here. There's no need to shuffle these decks because the decks will get shuffled before they are prospected. The next thing you're going to do is each player in the game is going to get a board based in their color, the miners based in their color, and depending on how many people are in the game. In a 3-player game you get 4 miners. In a 4-player game you get 3 miners. In a 5-player game you get 2 miners to start out with. All of the other miners in the game are placed on 1850, 1851, 1852, and 1853. So in a 3-player game I would start with my 4 miners that I get, and then 1 miner each on the different years that come after 1849. 1849 is the first turn, so that starts with no miners on it. The first player would also be giving the first player pickaxe, which will go from player to player as we go through the rounds. The regular mining dice are placed in the middle, and the winter mining dice is placed off to the side. To start a round, the first player is going to take the mining dice and he's going to roll them. Then he's going to assign them to the different paths. So any 6s will get assigned to the middle path. Sorry, that was 3 will go here, 1 goes here, a 2 and a 2, a 4, another 6. We got a lot of 6s this time, another 2, Now, this is going to denote which different areas can be mined this time. Now, you can see that there is no 5 dice to put on the 5 spot, so that means that currently this mine cannot be excavated this turn. Now, we do have the 6 dice. The 6s are all wild dice. If we would have had more 2 dice, let's say this would have been a 2, then a 2 would have gone here, and let's say this would have been a 2 as well. The 2 would have gone here. If your dice ever move into the red areas, so the last 4 have a little red border on them, if it ever goes into the red area, then that dice gets converted to a 6 and put in the middle. You never put the numeric dice in the red areas. This was a 6, so we're going to put this back as a 6. The game is set up and it's ready to go, and we start the game. So starting with the first player is going to take one of 3 actions on his turn. Right now we would be in what's called the prospecting phase. And during the prospecting phase, starting with the first player, each player is going to do one of 3 different actions. The first action he can do is he can place a miner on a location. So I could place a miner here on the forest. When I place that miner, I have to pay gold equal to the number that I'm putting my miner on. So that would be 2. So I would take 2 gold, and I would set those 2 gold in front of my little card here. So in front of my card, I would set my 2 gold. I'm just going to put them on here so that you can see them on the screen. Actually, I'll set them over here so you can see them on the screen. And then my turn would be done, and it would go to the next player. The next player would take his turn, and so on and so forth. The next option that a player can do on their turn is they can take one of the wild dice, and they can place it out on the board. So I could actually take this wild dice, and I could place it here. Now when you place a wild dice, you pay gold equal to the number of dice that are already there. So if I placed a wild dice here, it wouldn't cost me anything, and I would open up the lake to be excavated this time. But if I didn't want people to be able to excavate at the lake, I could play this dice here, which would cost me 1 gold, or I could play it here, which would cost me 3 gold. I'm going to go ahead and play it here. It doesn't cost me anything, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the lake to be excavated. You go around the table, everybody take their turns again, and come back to me. The third option that you can do during the prospecting phase is you can get 3 gold back. So I could actually take one of my miners and put it with my gold. And when I put my miner with my gold, then I take 3 gold back for the turn. So it goes back behind my little shield here. And I can use it with other miners in the game, but keep in mind this miner is now out for the round. He cannot be placed out on the board because he was used to get gold back. So I'm going to go ahead and go through my turns again. I'll play some other turns. I'll go ahead and put a miner here, and I'll pay 0 to put that miner out. I'll also put a miner, I'll put out another wild. That cost me 1 to put that out because there's 1 dice out there. I'll also put out another miner here, and that will cost me 1. I'm currently out of miners, so there's nothing else I can do, so I'm going to have to end my turn. If I hadn't placed all my miners during my turn, I could end my turn, and when you end your turn, you take any miners that you have left in your pool, and you assign them to a location. So I'm going to assign my miners to this location. These miners do not allow you to take actions during the mining phase, but they do account for the number of miners you have for priority at those locations. So I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to populate this board as if we had 3 players playing their miners out, and then we'll go through what you do in the mining phase. Okay, so I've now have populated the board with some blue players and some red players so that we can go through the mining phase and see how you resolve that phase. So during the mining phase, once everybody's done all their placement and everybody's passed out of the prospecting phase, the mining phase starts, and we always start with the hills, which is 1, and we move numerically through the mines, through each one of the areas that can be excavated this turn. Remember, if there's no dice at all on the location, then it cannot be excavated this turn. So we're going to start with the hills. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at the number of pawns that are on the path, and you're going to multiply that times the number of dice that are on the path. Now, any pawns that are out here in reserve do not count towards this. So if we look at this one, we have 1 pawn on the path and 1 dice. So 1 times 1 is 1. So that means that there is going to be 1 card available in the hills this turn. So the blue player has some options here. He can, 1, use this to go ahead and mine this location. In that instance, we're going to flip 1 card, 1 pawn times 1 dice, and he's going to get to choose between that 1 card. Or he can take his guy back, and he can take 2 coins from the pool. Those coins become part of his financial reserve, and he gets to keep this forever. Or he can lay his pawn down, and he can refuse to mine during the regular mining phase, and he can mine in the winter phase. Now, in this instance, we're only going to get 1 card if we mine in the regular mining phase. And since blue doesn't have anybody to compete with here, he's going to go ahead and say, I'm going to go ahead and lay this down, and I'm going to mine in the winter phase. Once the regular mining phase is over, then the winter phase starts. So we're going to go ahead and take the winter dice. We're going to roll it. And it was a 4. So we are going to pick 4 cards for him to mine from in the winter. So I'm going to pick 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you're going to put these cards down in the order of the type of card they are. So these 3 cards are nugget cards, and this is a gem card. So he is going to get to pick, with his guy from the winter phase, one of these cards. And he's going to go ahead and he's going to take the 2 nugget cards. So he's going to take that, he's going to put that in his reserve. All other cards that were not chosen are going to be put to the side of this deck. One thing I should have noted at the beginning of each one of these areas, we should shuffle the deck before starting. So now we're going to move to the forest, and we're going to do that. We're going to shuffle the deck. So we're going to shuffle this deck. Just going to give it a quick shuffle, but normally in the game you might shuffle a little more than that. Then we're going to look at the location, and you can see that in the location we have 2 miners times 3 dice, which is going to be 6, and 6 is going to be the number of cards that we draw from the deck. So we're going to draw 6 cards. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we have 3 silt, 2 nuggets, and 1 gem. Now the yellow, you're going to go in priority order. So the red player is at the highest priority. He's 3, but he's outnumbered by the yellow player. So the yellow player is going to go first. He is going to, because he has 3, he's going to take his guy, and he's going to pick one of the cards, and he's going to pick this 2 nugget card here. Then he's going to take all of his reserve guys, because he has no guys left here, so he's going to take all his reserve guys back. Then the red player is going to go, and he is going to take the 1 nugget for him, and he's going to take his guy back, and all of these are going to go next to the pile, like that. Then we're going to move. There was no winter phase here because nobody stayed to do the winter phase, and so then we're going to move on to the mountains. In the mountains phase, we have 3 pawns and 2 dice. So that's going to be 3 times 2 is 6. So we're going to draw 6 cards from the mountain area. So 1. We got a bad weather card. So that means we're going to draw 1 less card. So now we're only going to draw 5 cards. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. The bad weather card is the last card that we drew. So it doesn't do anything if it's the last card you draw. But we did get a false alarm card. Now false alarm cards, what you do is you take them, and any nugget cards and any gem cards that you get, you shuffle them together, and then you pick however many false alarm cards you have, you pick those at random, and you put them out of the game. Well, in this case, we only had a false alarm. We had no nuggets or gems, so this one's just going to be taken out and put to the side. And as we notice, there's nothing for anybody to choose from. So the blue and the red players really have nothing to mine. So they have some choices to make. The red player is going to get to choose first because he has the majority here and he's on the highest mark. So he's going to say he thinks he's going to wait till winter. So he's just going to lay down and he's going to wait till the winter phase. The blue player is next because he's in the next highest and now he has the highest number. And so he says, oh, I think I'm going to take 2 gold. So he's going to take both his guys off. He's going to take 2 gold from the reserve and put them into his supply. The last winter guy says, I'll take 2 gold too with this guy. He's going to take him, he's going to take 2 gold, and he's going to put it in the reserve. All these cards that were during the regular mining season are going to get put away, and we are going to go into the winter season. For the winter season, he's going to roll. Got a 4, so we're going to draw 4 for winter. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Winter was substantially better than the summer, so the red player is going to go ahead and he's going to take the 3 nugget and he's going to take his guy back, and these items are going to get put in the reserve. Then we're going to move on to the river. There are no prospectors here at the river, so we will pass the river on, and then we will move to the lake. We will shuffle the lake. We will multiply the number of pawns or miners by the number of dice, and so that's 2 times 2 is 4, so we're going to get 4 cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We have a false alarm card and a lake card, so we're going to take those cards. You take any false alarm cards and all nuggets and gem cards. You'll shuffle them together. You'll pick one at random. I picked the gem card, so that goes out of the game. And so now there's nothing left for them to mine. So they have some decisions. The red card guy says, well, he'll wait for winter. And the blue guy says he'll wait for winter as well. So they're both going to lay down and wait for winter. These cards come out of the game. And then we're going to roll the winter dice. Only got 2. So we got a 2 nugget and a 3 nugget for winter. Red has the majority and is at the highest spot. So he's going to go first. He's going to take the 3 nugget. The blue guy is then going to take the 2 nugget. And then we'll be done prospecting for the year. Once the year is over, then we're going to move to the next year, and in the year you're going to get your miner from the year, and you're going to get 1 gold. So for each year you're going to have 1 miner for each player, and you're going to have 1 gold for each player. So you're going to give each player their miner, and you're going to give each player 1 gold. Pass out the 1 gold. Then you're going to move the first player token to the next player. You're going to move the winter dice over to the side. You're going to place all of the cards that were used in the last round underneath the bottom of the decks that they came from. Then the first player is going to take all of the dice, re-roll them. He's going to distribute them to their specific locations. And then the next year will start and will work exactly like the previous year, where we start in the prospecting phase where people are putting out their miners and moving the dice and moving gold, and then once that's done, then you'll move to the mining phase where you'll do the regular mining phase for each deck, then the winter mining phase for each deck, and then you'll move to the next year. And this goes on and on and on until the game is done. Once the game is done, then we score our cards that we received throughout the game. Now, the first caveat is that nobody can have more than 1 of any gem. So if we look at the card for the gem for the lake deck, it is the color of the lake deck, and you cannot take more than 1 card like this. When you're mining and you're in the mining phase and you're taking a card, if you already have a lake gem, you cannot take another lake gem. So you can only have 1 of each of the gem cards from each of the locations. But the more different gems you have, the more that they're worth. So if you take a look here, the gems are worth 1 point if you have 1, they're worth 3 points if you have 2, 6 points if you have 3 different ones, 10 points if you have 4 different ones, and 15 points if you have 5 different ones. So one of the goals in the game is to try to get 1 of each of the gems so you can get that total 15 points. Another caveat of the game is that you have to get 1 nugget card from each location on the board or you take a penalty. So if you don't get a nugget card from, let's say, the hills in your final scoring, then you are going to lose 5 points for not having a nugget card from the hills. And you're going to have a 5-point deduction for every location that you don't have a nugget card for. So you can't just go to the river every time and get all river cards, because if you get all river cards, you're going to take a 20-point deduction at the end of the game, because you're going to lose 5 points for each one of these other locations that you don't have. So one of the things you want to do while playing the game is you want to try to make sure that you go around and try to get 1 nugget card from each of the locations so that you don't take a penalty on the nugget cards. The last caveat in the game is that when you total up your score at the end of the game, the location that gives you the most nuggets is going to be evaluated as fool's gold. Okay? So that means it's worthless. So what you're going to do at the end of the game is you're going to take all your cards that you received during the game and you're going to put them in order based on what location they came from. So I've got nuggets from the forest, nuggets from the lake, nuggets from the hills, here's another lake, here's a mountain, and here's a forest. Okay? So let's say these were my cards at the end of the game. First of all, I do not have a card from the river, so I'm going to take a -5 deduction because I don't have a card from the river. That's the first thing I'm going to do, -5. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out what location is giving me the most nuggets. And if I look here, it's the lake. I have 5 from the lake, I have 3 from the forest, I have 2 from the hills, and 3 from the mountains. So right off the bat, the lake is going to become fool's gold. So I'm going to take the lake and I'm going to take it out of my score. This is what I'm going to score on. So I have, now I count up the remaining nuggets that I have. So I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 nuggets, minus my 5 from the river, which takes me down to 3. And I get 1 point for having 1 different gem. So that's going to give me 4 points. So my total for this game, if this was the cards I had in hand at the end of the game, would be 4 points. The person with the most points is the winner. If there's a tie, and actually the first time I played this game, I had a tie, and the tie is broken by the person with the highest number of nuggets in a specific location. So let's say I had 3 in the forest, but let's say my opponent had 7 in the mountains, and we were tied. My opponent would win because he has the most in a specific location. And that's it. That's Fool's Gold. It's a really fun game. It's a game I had never heard of. I tried to look up some reviews online. I didn't even see any reviews online, but it's a very good game. You really have to think a lot about, you know, have I got something from this location? How do I get in this location? How do I stay high enough on the location so that I get something? Because it's very frustrating if you go someplace and you're the last person to pick and there's nothing left. You want to try to make sure you get the gems from the different locations, but you don't want to end up with gems that you can't take because you can only take 1 of each gem. You start to run out of money, so there's a lot of, you know, trying to figure out, should I just take my guy back to get money so I have more money in my pool, or should I stick around for winter and try to go in the winter? Because sometimes winter is better than the regular season, because if you're only going to draw 1 card in the regular season, you might roll a 6 on the winter dice and have 6 to choose from. So there's a lot of interesting thought in this game. It's a very quick game. It doesn't take very long to play. It's very intuitive. It's easy to teach. It doesn't take very long to learn. So highly recommended game. Fool's Gold. Very fun game. I give it 2 thumbs up. If you have any questions about the game, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll be sure to go in and answer them to the best of my ability. I hope you like this game. Check it out, and until I see you again, happy gaming.